sexual assault.
Well, I suffocated her. I put tape on her. I put tape on her mouth, and then I put tape on her nose.
Murder.
Held it there so she couldn't breathe.
All done by a colonel from the Army. Colonel Russell Williams, a former high-ranking officer of the Canadian Air Force, was found guilty of committing heinous crimes that shook the nation to its core. This cold-blooded killer, born on March 7, 1963, in Bromsgrove, England, rose to the rank of colonel after joining the Canadian Armed Forces in 1987, showing promising potential as a skilled pilot. Williams had a remarkable career trajectory, serving as the commanding officer of Canadian Forces Base Trenton in Ontario from July 2009 until his arrest in February 2010. However, his crimes were truly against his role in the military, which included 2 counts of first-degree murder, sexual assault, and other unspeakable offenses that left Canadians in utter disbelief. The cold-blooded murder of Corporal Marie-France Comeau, a 38-year-old Canadian Forces flight attendant, and Jessica Lloyd, a 27-year-old Belleville resident, left everyone shocked. As Russell Williams sat in the interrogation room, little did he know that his freedom was about to slip away. Despite his confidence in his abilities to charm and persuade the detective, his fate was already sealed. He had no idea that this would be his last day as a free man, and the weight of the impending doom he faced was lost on him. Russell was confident that he could talk his way out of anything, but he was soon to discover that his crimes were too heinous for even his smooth-talking skills to save him.
Make sure there's nice and clear. As you can see here, everything in this room is videotaped and audio taped.
Check.
You ever been interviewed by the police in a room like this before?
I have never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no? Okay.
No.
Let's get this set up there.
I guess the closest to interview by NIS for top secret clearance.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, again, Russell, I appreciate you coming in. An investigation like this, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate it's been big news, especially down Belleville way. And, you know, obviously our approach to cases like this is that we don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously. Yeah. So we're fast forwarding things that we might normally take our time with. And that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon. Sure. So again, I appreciate it. Okay. We're going to do a pretty thorough interview today. Okay. And the reason for that is because the last thing we want is to be calling people back again and again and again. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of things, and I'm going to explain what all those are to you. Okay. I'm a big coffee guy. I don't know if you're a coffee guy or not, but I didn't want to drink in front of you. So
no, I appreciate that.
All right, go ahead.
I could definitely. Are they black?
Yeah, they're just black with sugar.
The interrogation began on a friendly note, with the detective purposefully putting Russell at ease to build a sense of trust. The detective's approach was carefully calculated, as he aimed to make Russell feel comfortable enough to divulge important information. He even reassured Russell that the investigation would be thorough, implying that there would be no need to call him back. This statement was meant to lull Russell into a false sense of security, making him believe that he would be free to leave soon. However, the detective's true intentions remained concealed, as he built a case against the suspect with each passing moment.
We all have our rights guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Right. Okay. Now, Russell, just to avoid any confusion, because people do get confused when they're talked to by the police, is that you're obviously not under arrest here today. Okay. Yep. Anytime you feel you want to leave here, you feel free to do so. The door's not locked. Teresa will walk you down the lobby anytime you want. Okay. If there's anything that comes up in our interview today, Russell, that you feel you want to talk to a lawyer about, you just let me know. Okay. Sure. And the reason for that is I want to explain to you exactly what's going on here. Okay. Jessica Lloyd is one of 4 cases that we're currently investigating. Okay. Right. And essentially what's happened is over the past about 4 or 5 months, there have been 4 occurrences that, like I said, that we're looking into. Two of those occurrences occurred in September of 2009.
Yeah.
And very briefly, they were up in the Tweed area.
Yeah.
They involved somebody entering two different women's houses in the evening hours and committing sexual acts.
Yeah.
Okay. In November of 2009, a young lady by the name of Marie-France Comeau was found murdered in her home in Brighton.
Yeah.
And we believe that there was a sexual component to that crime as well.
Okay.
And then most recently we have Jessica Lloyd's disappearance. Okay, so essentially when you're looking at those kind of crimes, we're looking at a number of different potential criminal charges. All right, we're looking at issues all the way from the most serious one, which is first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, break and enter with intent to commit sexual assault, forcible confinement. Okay. And so what I want to make sure you understand, and this is what we've been doing with everybody we've been talking to, is that clearly when we find out who's responsible for one or all of those crimes, they could be charged with one or all of those offenses, okay, whether it's you or whether it's anybody else, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why it's important that we make sure that people understand what they have to do and what they don't have to do when they're talking to us, okay? So as I said before, any point today you feel the need, you want to speak to a lawyer, you let me know, and we can take you to a room where you can do that in private, okay?
Okay.
Do you have your own lawyer?
I have a realty lawyer, but
okay.
no, I don't have a lawyer.
All right. If at any point you want to make that call and you don't know who to call, we have a phone list of lawyers that are available to give you advice free of charge right over the phone. Okay. So again, if at any point today you want to take advantage of that, you just let me know.
Sure.
Is there any reason you want to call a lawyer now?
No.
Okay. A couple other fairly simple and straightforward things that you probably understand, but again, we go over them to make sure everybody's clear, is that you don't have to speak to me today, okay?
Okay.
The detective meticulously reviewed the case with Russell, explaining the events that led up to the interrogation and the reason for its necessity. Despite the gravity of the situation, the detective made it clear that Russell had the right to consult with a lawyer at any point and that he was free to leave. However, the detective then posed a crucial question that would ultimately determine Russell's fate. Where were you on the day of the murder? With the stakes so high, Russell's response could make or break the case against him.
Friday on the day I was at home most of the time. Most of the day I had a sort of a stomach flu.
Okay. In Ottawa or Tweed?
Tweed.
In Tweed? Okay.
Yeah.
So we backtrack then. So all day Friday, you're at home.
Yeah.
And then what time do you leave to go to the base to sleep there on the Friday night?
Not sure. Probably just, went in for just before bed. So I probably left Tweed between 8 and 9 or so.
Okay. And you get to the base and spend the evening there and get up for the 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So we backtrack from there. When did you arrive at your home at the cottage? I don't want to get confused between your home in Ottawa and the home in Tweed. So,
no, I had been in Tweed all week.
Yeah.
The week prior now.
Russell replied to the detective's question, claiming that he was at home with the stomach flu and did not go to work on the day of the murder. The detective listened intently to his answer, knowing that it would be crucial in determining his involvement in the crime. Detective Smythe turned his attention to the next question. How did you find out about the murders? He asked Russell, his eyes never leaving the suspect's face. The answer to this question would be equally important in piecing together the evidence and determining the truth.
I'm not going to walk you through November, but I'm going to take you to a date that's probably pretty fresh in your mind, the day that Marie-France Comeau.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you found out?
I do. Yeah, I was sent an email. Well, as soon as the ops staff and the base learned, they told me.
Okay.
So I got an email. I can't remember if it was late at night or early in the morning. It was certainly, I saw it, I want to say first thing in the morning because I had just come back from Ottawa. I was in Ottawa for a set of meetings on one of the days. I can't remember what day of the week we're talking about, but obviously when your people gets killed, it gets your attention. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I very much remember that coming in.
And how did you know Marie-France Comeau?
I'd only met her once. She was on a crew I was on just after I got to the base.
Okay.
So I can't even remember. I think it was a one-day trip. I did a number of trips in Canada transporting our troops, sort of first leg out of Edmonton, we tend to hopscotch them across until they get in the theater. So anyway, I can't remember which trip it was, but we did a number of them out to Edmonton just to pick up the troops, bring them to Trenton, and then put a fresh crew on, and because we'd fly out and back in the same day. So,
sensing a shift in the dynamics of the interrogation, the detective decided to take a more direct and aggressive approach.
What would you be willing to give me today to help me move past you in this investigation?
What do you need?
Well, would you be willing to supply things like fingerprints, blood samples,
Sure.
things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Footwear impressions?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's what we're gonna ask you to do.
Okay.
All right. Now we have a process we have to go through to do that.
Okay.
And for the blood sample, I don't take the blood sample. We have specially trained officers that are trained to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to step out and make sure they're still available.
Can I assume you're going to be discreet?
It's possible. Yeah.
Because this would have a very significant impact on the base if they thought you thought I did this.
Well, bottom line, Russell, that's one of the reasons we're here on a Sunday afternoon.
The tide of the interrogation took an abrupt turn when the detective asked Russell to provide DNA and shoe samples. Russell's demeanor suddenly changed as he shifted uneasily in his seat and defensively crossed his arms, a clear indication that he was feeling uneasy. The detective took note of this reaction, and his suspicions were only heightened when Russell asked whether the matter would be kept discreet. This question, coming from a man who claimed to be innocent, was highly suspicious, and the detective knew that he was onto something. It was becoming increasingly clear that Russell was trying to hide something, and the detective was now certain of his guilt. The interrogation had uncovered crucial evidence that would prove to be instrumental in securing a conviction against Russell.
Now that you've had some time I know we've been throwing a lot of things at you here, but now you've had some time to think about things. Is there anything that you're concerned about that buccal swab matching in any of those 4 residences? Is there, I guess, let me explain you what I'm getting at here, Russell, okay? This is a significant investigation, as you can well imagine.
Yeah.
That DNA is going to be significant in our investigation, both quite possibly to help you, quite possibly to help us.
Understood.
I don't know yet. I don't know what the result is yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go back to the example I gave you because it's a very similar issue, I think. And you talked about the idea of discretion here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the idea that I think hopefully you appreciate the fact of how we approached you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And essentially, we have no issues with that. Okay. We talked recently about the whole idea of any unusual sex acts in your history.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that can often happen in cases like this is that people become concerned about things like extramarital affairs, indiscretions along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any contact that you may have had with any of those 4 women that you may not want your wife to be aware of? Anything like that we should know about to try and explain why, if your DNA is found, it would help us understand why it may be there?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The detective's next question was a critical one, and it carried a subtle implication that was not lost on Russell. The detective hinted that if DNA evidence was found, it could be explained away as a result of an affair that Russell might have had with one of the women. Russell's unease was palpable as the detective carefully phrased the question, making sure to mention the discretion aspect. The implication was clear. Russell had something to hide, and he was trying desperately to keep it under wraps. The detective knew that this was the moment he had been waiting for, and his skilled questioning had finally exposed the truth.
What kind of tires do you have on your Pathfinder?
I think they're Toyo.
Okay. Do you know the brand name, or sorry, the
I think
make?
I don't. Sorry, the make is Toyo.
Yeah.
I don't know the model.
See, I'll read this off to you, see if it rings a bell. Ever heard of, does Toyo Open Country HTS
That sounds
make any
right.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. When did you have those tires put on your Pathfinder?
Well, it's the second version we've had of them, so I think it might have been this past fall. They replaced other ones we'd had on the same. Well, Toyo, I can't say that they were exactly the same model, but our dealership here in Ottawa says they're very popular for the Pathfinders.
The detective then broached the topic of a recent renovation, all the while carefully planting subliminal cues that would help him uncover crucial evidence. He then shifted the conversation towards Russell's Pathfinder SUV, carefully watching for any signs of discomfort or hesitation. The detective was well aware of the tire evidence that had been recovered at the crime scene, and he knew that the tires on Russell's vehicle could be a crucial piece of evidence in solving the case. By bringing up the subject of the SUV in a roundabout way, the detective was trying to gauge Russell's reaction and see if he would reveal anything incriminating.
One of the other things that they do to try and identify the type of vehicle that may have left those tires, well, is they do two things. They talk to witnesses, okay? There was a female police officer that actually drove by that location that evening and recalls seeing an SUV type vehicle in the field to the north of Jessica Lloyd's house, consistent with a Pathfinder. Okay. Could maybe consistent with other things, but consistent with a Pathfinder. And they, what they also do to try and identify the type of the vehicle is they look at what they call the wheelbase width. Okay, because different vehicles, different makes, models have wheelbase width, so they can take those two sets of tire tracks, measure the distance between them, okay, and determine what the width is, and then they can enter that into a vehicle database, and it will spit out the types of vehicles. Okay, your Pathfinder's wheelbase width is very, very close to the width of the tires that were left in that field. Okay, do you have any recollection at all of being off that road?
Despite the mounting evidence against him, Russell continued to deny any involvement in the crime, insisting that he had never been in the vicinity of the crime scene. However, the beads of sweat on his forehead betrayed his growing anxiety as he struggled to recall his whereabouts on the night in question. As they continued to talk, the detective left the room briefly, only to return with a damning piece of evidence that would finally shatter Russell's facade of innocence.
So let me go out and see what's happening, and then I'll come back in and we'll hopefully continue. Okay? I told you when I came in here that I'm going to treat you with respect, and I've asked you to do the same for me. We talked about the whole idea of how we've approached you here. Okay, the trying to be as discreet as possible. Okay. But the problem is, Russell, is every time I walk out of this room, there's another issue that comes up, okay? And it's not issues that point away from you. It's issues that point at you, okay? And I want you to see what I mean, all right? This is the footwear impression of the person who approached the rear of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January, okay? All right? Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is slightly smaller, okay, in scale, okay? Okay. All right, that's not to scale. The footwear is actually bigger. Okay. If you look here on the ruler, you'll see that 1 inch is just slightly smaller than an actual inch, okay? But this is the way it prints off on the computer. Yeah. I'm going to move this over so you can see what I mean, all right? Because essentially, when you're dealing with footwear impressions, we have a gentleman on the OPP who's basically world-renowned. His name is John Norman. And essentially, with footwear impressions, you're in a situation where you're pretty much in the area of fingerprints, okay? And essentially, what we're talking about here is, especially when you start adding in other pieces of information that support an investigative position, okay? This is a photocopy of the boot that you took off your foot just a little while ago, okay? Now, I'm not an expert in footwear impressions, so I rely on the experts. Footwear impressions are very much like fingerprint comparisons, okay? You take a look at this print, and again, this is one print. This person walked through, there's several different prints to compare, so we're going to get features off of one print to compare, features off another print to compare. These are identical. Your vehicle drove up the side of Jessica Lloyd's house. Your boots walked to the back of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January. Okay? You want discretion. We need to have some honesty, okay? Because this is getting out of control really fast, Russell.
The detective's voice took on a different tone upon his return, signaling that something significant had changed. He now had a mountain of evidence against Russell, leaving him no room for denial or evasion. The matching boots and tires were the final nail in the coffin, and Russell knew it too. The weight of the evidence was too much to bear, so Russell started to give up his stubbornness. He could not deny the inescapable truth any longer.
You know there's only one option. What other option is there?
What's the option?
Well, I don't think you want the cold-blooded psychopath option. I might be wrong, okay? Because don't get me wrong, I've met guys who actually kind of enjoyed the notoriety, got off on it, got off on having that label, Bernardo being one of them. I don't see that in you. If I saw that in you, I wouldn't be back in here talking to you, quite frankly. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you got me fooled. I don't know. This is over. And it can have a bad ending where Jessica's parents continue to wonder where her daughter's lying. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's a huge search still underway, and it'll continue. It'll continue until her body's found. That might even happen tonight, for all I know. Once that happens, then I don't know what other cards you would have to play.
Russell's demeanor shifted to one of despair as the weight of the evidence bore down on him. He knew he had been caught red-handed and was rendered speechless. His silence spoke volumes, and it was clear to the detective that he was getting close. Despite Russell's lack of cooperation, the detective remained persistent and urged him to reveal the location of the body. If Russell was genuinely innocent, he would have fought tooth and nail to prove it, but his silence only confirmed his guilt.
Is she close to where she lives? I've got maps of that general area. Which town is she near? Why don't we start there?
I'm not sure if you give me a map of it covers Calabar down to the highway and over to Tweed and south. I'll show you.
Let me see what I got here. I might have something. Is she inside, outside? It's probably the biggest area I have there, Russ.
Yeah, you need more. You need a real map.
So where am I going on here to get to her?
In this block here.
Okay. So you're pointing to
a detailed map of that area, and I'll show you where she is.
Is she close to a road?
Yep.
All right. Is it something where is she buried, or is she somewhere where if you walk there you would fairly easily see her?
You'd see her.
Okay. So she's south of 7, east of Tweed, west of 41. And what's this road here?
Not sure.
Neither am I. Okay. I'll be right back, okay? Do you want any water or anything?
Sure.
Okay, I'll be right back. How long has she been there for?
For a week.
Was it fairly quick from the time she left?
Friday night.
Friday night?
Yeah.
So where was she between Thursday night and Friday night?
In Tweed.
With you?
Yeah.
How long was she alive for?
Almost 24 hours, not quite.
Russ? You're doing the right thing here. Okay.
Well, again, my interest is in making my wife's life a lot easier.
In a moment of defeat, Russell finally caved under the pressure. Without hesitation, the detective retrieved a map and began the search for the victim's body. Russell cooperated and answered all subsequent questions, concluding with a handshake between him and the detective.
Inside there are 2 memory cards.
Okay.
Which are blank, but I'm sure they can be
And whose images are on those cards?
well, I've erased them, but I expect to be able to draw images of Jessica and I.
What about Marie?
There may be images on there as well.
And the 2 women from September?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have those images stored anywhere else?
Yeah, there are 2 hard drives in the house in Ottawa.
Russell made a full confession to the detective, including details about the pictures he had on his desk.
Oh, there it is there. Okay. How far off the road is she?
40 feet.
Is she covered with anything?
She's wrapped up.
In
She's
what?
on the surface. A gray something or other. Cover.
Okay. Barry, the obvious question I'm going to have for you is, when they go there, and they'll be there shortly, They're going to find her?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll be right back. You look like you want to say something.
Just that this place, my wife, it's been a dream for the better part of a year, so I'm keen to get them what they need and so they can leave her alone.
Okay. Well, we're going to do our best to keep that as low-key as possible, okay?
Russell provided detailed instructions to the detective on locating and recovering the body.
Well, I suffocated her. I put tape on her. I put tape on her mouth, and then I put tape on her nose and held it there so she couldn't breathe.
What kind of tape was it?
Duct tape.
What happened to it?
Well, I took it with me and can't remember what actually I did with that tape, but probably threw it in the garbage.
Did you use tape for any other purposes?
As the detective continued the interrogation, he came to realize how twisted and evil Russell's mind was.
How much underwear is in those boxes?
Probably 60 pieces or so.
All women's?
Yeah, 60 pieces of theirs.
Of whose?
Of Jessica's and Marie-France.
So you took 60 pieces from between the two of them?
Yeah.
The detective was visibly disturbed upon learning the extent of Russell's collection of stolen underwear from his victims, realizing the depth of his disturbing behavior.
Same kind of deal. Running through the back of the house. She was sleeping in her, not in her bedroom, but in her, in front of the TV. Very much the same story.
Anything different about that story? I mean, pretty much the same story and exactly the same story are two different things, right?
Yeah, no, not much different at all. I did have the flashlight. That time I hit her with a flashlight. Didn't think it would knock her out. Didn't. So I subdued her with my weight. Her clothes, took some pictures and left.
Russell nonchalantly described to the detective how he had acquired the second victim, and soon after, Sergeant Jim Smith closed the investigation. The gruesome details of his crimes sent shockwaves through the country and highlighted the issue of violence against women in Canada. The fact that he was in a position of authority within the Canadian military only served to add to the sense of betrayal and outrage felt by the Canadians. In the end, justice was served, and Williams Russell was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. His crimes will forever remain a black mark on the history of the Canadian Armed Forces, and a reminder that even those in positions of power and authority are not above the law.